Concussions are no joke, and unfortunately, women are at a higher risk due to our biology. Our neck muscles and cervical spine are generally weaker, making us more vulnerable to head injuries. My next guest, Mairlyn Smith, knows this all too well, having experienced 4 concussions in her life. Today, she joins me to share her journey of dealing with concussions, the impact they've had on her day-to-day life, and her advice for other women navigating similar challenges. Mairlyn, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this subject because it doesn't get talked about, and there are so many women that do have them. So thank you for shedding a light on this.
Yeah, I feel like I want to bubble wrap you right now before we go into this interview because you've experienced a staggering 4 concussions. So could you start by telling us about your first concussion and what led to it?
It's funny you should say bubble wrap. My son wants to wrap me in bubble wrap. He's a strength and conditioning coach for pro athletes, and he goes, "Mom." Anyway, so the first one I played volleyball in high school. I'm very competitive. I ran into a wall. That was a long time ago. They just said, "Shake it off." I saw stars. I had a headache. But nobody did anything about that. The second one, I was an actor and I rode a baby steer in a kid's rodeo, got bucked off, landed on the side of my neck, my head, tore my neck, the ligaments in my neck. But they were treating me for my neck injury, not for the fact that I landed on my head. So once again, that was a long time ago. The third one, I got rear-ended by a tow truck. I hit my brake
Wow.
and I avoided hitting the guy in front of me. And I was thinking, wasn't that great? And then I saw the silver shining lights in my rearview mirror and a tow truck rear-ended me and it totaled my car. Went to the hospital, went to Sunnybrook to the traumatic brain injury clinic. But back then, it was like stay in a dark room, wear sunglasses, and good luck. And so when this one happened, which was in 2023, I slid on some black ice, went up in the air, fell on my hip, and then smacked my head on the sidewalk. And I remember thinking it was the worst noise I'd ever heard. But my first one was, did I break my hip? And
Right.
I hadn't. And I thought, oh, good. All those exercises that I do is helping. But I knew there was something really wrong with my head. But, I'm a TV person and I was on breakfast television the next morning. So the show must go on. And I have no recollection of doing that segment. I know I was there. I know I did it. And then the next day I woke up with the worst headache. I said to my husband, I think I have a brain aneurysm. You have to take me to the hospital. And I got there, they said, yeah, you had a really bad concussion. It's really too bad you didn't come in earlier. That was really stupid. You went on television. You should go to a concussion therapy clinic. And that's what I did.
So I just want to go back here a little bit because the first 2 concussions, it sounds like you didn't realize they were concussions. So how did you come to this realization? Was it through the concussion therapy clinic?
Yes. Yes. So now, back then, I'm 70. So back then, I was 18 for the first one, in my early 20s for my second one. Concussion wasn't something that anybody actually talked about. I mean, it wasn't ever on anybody's radar. Maybe just because I was a woman and I wasn't an athlete, I don't know. I just know that that was not what anybody treated me for. And the third one, when I went to Sunnybrook, yeah, they said I had a traumatic brain injury. Now, the fourth one is a concussion. Is it a TBI? I don't know. I don't think so. But they said it was accumulation, and the fact that I never really recovered from the third one. And so the protocol to recover from concussion right now is drastically different than my third one when I went to Sunnybrook. And this is you start exercising within a couple of days. You don't stay in a dark room. You don't wear sunglasses. You can wear a brimmed hat, but every time, see what the deal now is that you've lost roads in your brain. So when you have a TBI or a concussion, how you find an answer in your brain is as a road. Let's just say that. And then when you have this injury, the road has to get a detour. But if you don't have a detour, then you have to make that detour. And the only way that you can do that is by stressing your brain a little bit at a time. And that's why pacing, exercises, I went to a concussion therapy clinic. I've been going to physiotherapy almost, well, I guess it's 18 months now. I went once a week for almost a year. I did all the exercises that I was supposed to do, including cognition, eye exercises, balance, stressing my brain. so that I would get back to my normal function. And I think that is, well, I know that's the reason why I am where I am today, because it's expensive. Like, I paid for this myself. So last year I spent over $10,000 in rehab and med
Wow.
stuff. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm very lucky that I had that money to do that because, well, my husband said, we just cash in something because this is way more important than saying I can't afford to go, because I couldn't work. So, you have no income and then it's expensive. So it's a big, tough road, but, and I was lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones that I'm actually still recovering.
So one of the things I was doing as I was preparing for this interview is I was reading up on concussions, and surprise, surprise, there hasn't been a lot of studies into women and concussions. We are just starting to learn about it, and it does seem that women are biologically more prone to them. How has that played a role in your own experience in terms of information you are receiving from experts, and as you are going through this process?
It's a really interesting question. The first two times I don't have an opinion because, they didn't even talk about the concussion. The third one, though, I do remember this moment when I was at talking to the neurologist at Sunnybrook, and I couldn't memorize anymore. I was an actress back then, and I had lost the ability to memorize. And I was really upset. That's actually when I started doing voice work, because I could still read, but I couldn't remember stuff as well. And I was there complaining, and he said to me, listen, you, and I felt like when he kind of gave me a wagging of his finger, it was like, you've got someone to look after you. So, the person out there, the husband, he doesn't even know who he is. And so I just felt like he was judging me. Now, that's just a personal opinion.
Right.
But this one, the fourth one, no, I got the care that I've been giving is extraordinary, exponentially better. And I believe that it's universal. I mean, like, the first time when I got diagnosed by the doctor, when I got assessed, he went through all this stuff. I went, yeah, the weird thing is that since I got hit by the tow truck, when I turned my head to the right, I always fall over. And, I had told other doctors that, but no one had put the dots together. So I don't think it was because I was a woman or not a woman. I think it was just that there's so much more science behind it. And interestingly enough, he told me that the most people who have concussion are seniors, children. And in the seniors category, it is mostly women, but there's also abuse. So physical abuse to women is something that we don't talk about, and that's a huge, because they're afraid to go to a hospital to talk about their brain injuries. And then there's the athletes. But the reason that we have so much science now is because the athletes are now getting better care, and that's where the science went. And I believe that was because, they're expensive. That's pro sports, or they make a lot of money off their players. It behooves them to take care of them. But I'm just glad that I'm reaping the benefits of that kind of research.
Mairlyn, I imagine your day to day has changed significantly, especially since this last one. Could you share what a typical day looks like for you now?
Well, I think we need to compare it with what I used to do. So, it was a ton of stuff. I was really active, both physically and mentally, with cognition. I did a ton of stuff. Write books, did, cooking shows, like, went on TV. And then that happened, the fourth one. And I couldn't do anything. I had to stop working. When I first started walking, my shadow made me dizzy, which I thought, oh, come off it. Is this really happening? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So through the transition through, I guess around, I don't know, maybe sometime about almost a year later, my neurologist had said if I ever wanted to be back on television, because, just a sidebar, so I cook and talk and think when I'm doing my TV stuff or when I was doing my live shows on Instagram on how to cook, and I couldn't do that anymore. And so he said if I ever wanted to do it again, once again, you got to make those new roads. I needed to practice. So I started once again doing my live Instagram cooking shows on Fridays so that I could practice, so that I could go back. And I told my fans and followers, this could be a disaster, but, you're helping me and I'm helping me, and let's see what happens. And when I look back on those first ones, you can find them on my Instagram. Go back to, I guess, January 2024, maybe a little earlier. I actually can't remember when I started doing them. I was a mess, I mean, like, I was stumbling. I couldn't remember what I was talking about. I had a really hard time because I always thought talking, cooking, thinking was easy. Well, it's not. Anyway, so now after all of that, there's so many little things that you take for granted that your brain does automatically, like multitasking. Zip, can't do that anymore. I have to pace myself. Over the weekend, I shot 4 reels for I'm doing a Zoom classes for Diabetes Awareness Month. So I shot 4 reels on one day with camera, lights, people here. The next day I went to a book launch of a really lovely woman that I know and really admire. And then I went to a celebration of life. And then we had friends over to play cards. And Monday I was a mess. And Monday night I played cards with friends again. And Tuesday I had I couldn't sleep on Monday night. So I had a terrible headache pretty much all day on Tuesday. So that kind of stuff, I mean, I'm trying, and because most days now I go, oh, I don't have a concussion anymore. And then I do too much and my body goes, yes, you do. Smarten up. You need to rest. So most days if I look at myself and I go, okay, let's pace ourselves. So, I walk, I do a power walk in the morning so that I get my blood flow going in my brain, which is really good for normal brain health, but really great for improving your brain and getting over concussion symptoms. I eat really, really healthy. So that's something altogether. I might do something like this in the morning, but then I have to have a meditation or a mindfulness moment. So I'll actually before I did this, because I did so much this morning, my eyes are still really bad. So these are my concussion glasses. There's no glass in them. There's just some tape down the middle. So it calms my brain down. So because I did some cognition stuff this morning, I had to go have a nap before I talk to you. And this is going to be a heavy load. So I'm going to have to go lie down after this. And I'm taking a stand-up comedy class at night. And so when I get home tonight, it's going to have to be big time meditation, big time chill down, or I won't be able to sleep. So it's this new way of living that is now my way of living. And if I don't follow the rules, I pay for it.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions? Could you quickly just maybe sort of run them through of what people think a concussion is and what you would say it definitely is not?
So I think most people think concussions are if you're a pro athlete, like you're a hockey player or a football player or a soccer player. And yeah, as I mentioned before, actually, no, when you look at the actual numbers of diagnosed concussions, they're not up there. I mean, they are, but they're not the top ones. So that's the first one. So the misconception is you have to be an athlete to have a concussion. Yes, there are lots, but you don't have to be an athlete. I'm not. And the second one is that you have to stay in a dark room and wear sunglasses and don't do anything. And that's completely wrong now. They say after about 3 days, actually the best way to recover is to start to stress your brain. And when I say stress your brain, I don't mean go for a jog. I just mean, walk around the block. Like I said, when I first started walking, my shadow made me dizzy. So, small incremental things. The third one is that what you eat doesn't matter. And yes, it does. They said I would recover better because of the diet that I already had, which was eating a lot of leafy greens and berries and, foods that are omega-3 rich. So what you eat is going to affect how your brain heals. I guess the fourth one for me is, and this is really interesting, is that all concussions are the same. And they're not. They're very, very different. Depends on where you hit your head, depends on how old you are, depends on how many concussions you've had previously. Because mine weren't really, really close together. Like the last one was like 20 some odd years ago. Just as a sidebar, there is a link to dementia and other kind of brain damage, I want to say, when you have concussions very close together. I'm lucky that I didn't have them close together because I was concerned about developing dementia in my older years. And so, yeah, I think that the biggest one is that, and then the other one is that they go, well, it's been 16 months, Mairlyn, what's your problem? And I want to go, here's my problem. My problem is that you don't understand and that everybody's concussion is different. I think I did a lot of here I am in this concussion moment on Instagram. And my favorite one was a husband sent a note and he said, I didn't believe my wife and I am so sorry. And thank you for making me aware that she's not making up the fact that she's dizzy, overwhelmed, has migraines, is so tired, is irritable, I mean, all those little things, I guess you could say, oh, she's in menopause, but but I mean, that's a misconception too. So I'm just really glad that I got to shed a light on what it's like to have one, and that we need to be way more empathetic. I mean, the first time I was on the subway, I had to get off after 2 stops. I looked like I was drunk because I was staggering off, and I threw up on the platform because the motion made me so sick. And so we're so judgmental. I'm sure somebody thought, oh, look at that woman at 2 in the afternoon, bombed out of her head, and no, my
Right.
brain was saying, get off the subway, you're going to die. So we are very judgmental. And yeah, was that a big enough rant?
I think that was great. And I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with people. I think it's very helpful. I do want people to be able to follow you, Mairlyn, in other places because you do share these things, like as you said on your Instagram. So where can people connect with you?
So my Instagram, I spell my name weirdly. It's Mairlyn. So just look at Mairlyn Smith on Instagram. That's where, since my concussion, I'm only on one platform because I can't do multiple platforms anymore. It's too much work. And the other place that I think I would love to send people to is there are many concussion clinics. The one that I went to was called 360 Concussion. It was started by Dr. Roger Zemek out of Ottawa. He's a pediatric physician and saw so many kids with, pediatric in his emergency ward with concussion. But now he's got a grant and he's going to study concussions in Canadians and specific protocols. So I got diagnosed at a clinic and I stayed at the 360 clinic. And I'm telling you, I've talked to other concussion survivors, I'm going to say, and the quality of care that I got was phenomenal. Sarah Polly talks about that she went down to Pittsburgh to have help. And the kind of things they do in Pittsburgh is very similar to what I've been able to have apply to me. So I'm very lucky. And I want people to reach out and get help if they can. It's the best way to get your life together again and move on.
All
Getting
right.
better, not move on, getting better, getting better, getting better, getting better.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Mairlyn, so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.